heard of Mr. Kordesman? Just a few, yes. He specializes in assessing legal murder called war. And after what happened in Gaza, he put out a report called the Gaza Massacre, Gaza War, in quotes. And he said Israel didn't violate any of the laws of war. That's all. Just fabricated. How he reached this conclusion? Bear in mind, in the United States, he's considered the leading military analyst. Everyone turns to him. He's one of the favorite pundits. How did he reach his conclusion? You can check for yourself. It's on the web, his website. He goes to Israel on an American Jewish Committee paid trip. He goes and interviews Israeli generals. He reads all the Israeli press releases from the war, and he concludes, based on these press releases and talking to Israeli generals, he concludes Israel didn't violate any of the laws of war. And then he gets widely quoted for his authoritative opinion on the topic. Beyond restoring its deterrence capacity, Israel's other main goal in the Gaza massacre was to fend off, to beat back the latest threat posed by Palestinian moderation. And this is an interesting topic. I'll just go into it, relatively confined remarks. I'll be happy to elaborate on it later. For the past 3 decades, which is to say longer than the lifetime of most of you here, since about the mid-1970s, believe it or not, it'll come as a surprise to some of you, the whole international community has agreed on how to resolve the conflict. It's not complicated at all. The Israel-Palestine conflict raises no serious issues in international law, no serious issues of principle. The entire international community agrees how to resolve the conflict. Most of you know it in a formula form. It's called a two-state settlement. And the two-state settlement basically means as follows. Number one, Israel has to fully withdraw from the territories it conquered in June 1967. Why? Because under international law, it's inadmissible to conquer territory by war. Israel conquered the West Bank and Gaza, East Jerusalem in the course of a war. They have to withdraw. They have no title to the territory. As the International Court of Justice ruled in July 2004, the whole of the West Bank, the whole of Gaza, East Jerusalem, they are, to quote the highest judicial body in the world, they are occupied Palestinian territories. In addition, Israel is a member state of the United Nations. As a member state of the United Nations, it has the right to be free from threats and use of force. So Israel has to be recognized as a state which has the same rights and responsibilities under Article 2 of the United Nations Charter. And that basically is the two-state settlement, full Israeli withdrawal to the June 1967 border, the right of Palestinians to exercise self-determination in the occupied Palestinian territories, the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem, and what's called a resolution of the Palestinian refugee question in accordance with the basic principle of international law, namely the right of return and compensation. Those are the terms. Most of you, as I said, are familiar with it. What you're perhaps not as familiar with is the whole world agrees on it. It's not complicated. If you have any doubts, I'm sure all of you occasionally, if not too frequently, Google. So all you have to do is Google these words. Careful to maintain the ceasefire. It keeps to the terms even when Israel is egregiously violating its responsibility under the ceasefire. So now Hamas is a credible negotiating partner. You can trust it to stand by its word. It gets even worse. Because Hamas says, as the head of Israeli internal security, Yuval Diskin, puts it, it's interested in renewing the relative calm with Israel. Well, for Israel, these developments are a veritable disaster. It can no longer justify shunning Hamas, and would only be a matter of time before international pressure, in particular from the Europeans, would be exerted on Israel to negotiate. Well, what's Israel to do? Its only option is to provoke Hamas by breaking the truce, and then to radicalize Hamas or destroy it, and thereby eliminating it as a legitimate negotiating partner. That's not the first time that Israel faced this cruel dilemma, this diabolical threat. The diabolical threat being an Arab League peace initiative, Palestinian support for a two-state settlement, and a Palestinian ceasefire. In fact, it's as the American ball player Yogi Berra famously put it, it's deja vu all over again. Mid-1970s, there was this organization called the Palestine Liberation Organization. That was the terrorist organization of the day. And in the mid-1970s, the PLO was saying, under the leadership of Yasser Arafat, or misleadership of Yasser Arafat, it's saying, we'll accept the two-state settlement. Exactly like Hamas, it's communicating, transmitting, we'll accept the two-state settlement. Now, the PLO back then was headquartered in southern Lebanon, and there were constant conflicts between Israel and the PLO in southern Lebanon. And in July 1981, bear in mind the repetition, in July 1981, Israel and the PLO, headquartered in South Lebanon, they negotiate a ceasefire. Okay, a problem is arising. They negotiate a ceasefire. It's going to legitimate